is Acharya Maheshvarananda Avt. I had the unbelievable grace to have seen Baba repeatedly during the last 12 years of his physical stay with us. Each time that he spoke to me, I would immediately write it down right afterwards. Today, while I share my experiences, I will read Baba's words so I get them as accurately as possible. However, I want to emphasize that though Baba was speaking to me, all his words were actually for you, all spiritual aspirants. I hope you find them useful in your spiritual journey for self-realization and service to humanity. First, let me tell you how I found Ananda Marga. When I was 21, I was living in New Orleans in the United States. I read that in a book that yoga was good for you. So when I found a notice for a free yoga class at Tulane University, I went. You have to understand that back then, only hippies and weirdos ever did yoga in the West. But I was a little bit of both, so I went and I loved it. I felt more energy, I felt healthier, I got more flexible. So the instructor, who was a graduate student, he said, we'll also have an orientation for free meditation. And he taught me about yama niyama in 3 classes, I and 8 others. Frankly, yama niyama blew my mind because it was the synthesis of everything I'd been thinking and concerned with. For example, I wanted to be nonviolent, but what happens if I'm attacked or somebody else is attacked? So the principle of ahimsa, which is not intentionally hurting anyone, made perfect sense, as did the ecological principle of aparigraha, living simply, reducing your accumulation. So a Filipino Acharya came. His name was Dada Maheshvarananda, and he initiated me. And at the beginning, I went a little bit up and down. I would do 2 times a day, once a day, and then I'd stop. But after 7 days, I thought, maybe I'll try the meditation again. And I go back to Dharma Chakra. We're only about 8 or 10 margis. And we're doing kiirtan in all these weird ways, there wasn't even lines or doing it together at that point. And I thought, this is going to change the world. But you see, someone, Prakash, who had come with the Acharya when I was initiated, he mentioned Prout. And I thought, because Baba had written that how can there be any justification when all the resources are the common heritage of everyone, for some people to roll in luxury while others are dying for lack of a handful of grain? I thought, if Baba said that, I'm in. That's the revolutionary path I wanted. So one day I'm sitting after meditation. Somebody would tell a Baba story, then they'd all go into the kitchen and make a potluck dinner. But one time I didn't go. I sat there in front of the photo of Baba. And I thought, they say that you're the guru of everyone. They say that you know everything. You know what I'm thinking. So I started to mentally talk to the photo, telling him what my dreams and my hopes were in my life. I started to feel a wave of peace going through me. I was shocked. I thought this must not be an ordinary photograph. This person must be very special. After a year and a half, I'd gone to a sectorial retreat in Oklahoma, and my knees hurt a lot. So in the new meditation on January 1st, 1976, after 5 minutes, I stopped trying to meditate and I just look around, waiting for it to end. And suddenly I got the thought, I'm going to be an acharya, a whole timer. As soon as I thought that, I knew with 100% certainty that I was going to do it. Afterwards, I ran out, told all my friends, I'm going to be an acharya. And you know what they all said? It's okay. Everybody goes through those phases. It'll pass. Never mind. No, really. I know I'm going to do it. But I was asked to be a LFT, a local full-timer, for a year and a half before I was finally given permission to go to India to train as a monk. So I worked in the sectorial office in Denver, Colorado at that time. But whenever I had to travel, I would hitchhike. I had no money. Everybody in the sectorial office was in their 20s. The oldest guy was like 30. One time I'm hitchhiking somewhere in the Great Plains, all flat. And at night, a driver had left me at a roadside rest area. So I put my sleeping bag on the grass and I slept there peacefully. And in the morning, dawn was just breaking. I sat up in my sleeping bag and I'm seeing this incredible color mosaic. Colors are changing every second. This painting goes for, 100 miles. And I'm thinking, there's only one artist who can make anything like that. And that's the supreme artist, of course. And the funny feeling I got, I thought, I'm probably 1,000 kilometers from anybody I know. And yet I felt I was home. For me, home is when I feel safe and I feel loved. And though I was in the middle of nowhere, I felt safe and loved. And the strangest thing is that ever since, wherever I go in my life, I feel that I'm home. Sometimes it's a little more difficult than other times to feel that, but I always feel that somehow. So when I was 24, I was finally allowed to fly to India to take my training. And first I wanted to see Baba. He was in jail at that time. It was January 1978. And when I went to see Baba in Bankipur jail, you had to wait about 2 weeks to get permission. There was one day of the week when Baba had it that only Margis from overseas would come. And we had to go in 2 by 2. And a brother from Australia went in with me. Guru Charan, I believe, was his name. had seen Baba before, but I had not. And I told him, I only want to remember one thing to say to Baba. I want to tell him namaskar for 3 Margis who were blacklisted because they were known to be members of Ananda Marga. The Indian government put them on a blacklist to refuse their visa, refused them permission to come to India because they considered Ananda Marga a terrorist organization. So when we went in Baba's little cell, there are 3 chairs and 3 officers were sitting there wearing their shoes, which was very disrespectful. And they were sitting there, they were from the Central Bureau of Intelligence, to listen to every meeting Baba had with anyone. There was a little table in the middle with a pratik on it, and the cot where Baba lay was on the left side of the room. And there was a little toilet, door to a toilet behind that. Baba didn't look like the photos I had seen. He'd been in jail for 7 years at this point, fasting for 5 years. But I figured this must be the right person. We did sastang pranam, and Baba had us come close. We sat so close to Baba's head that he could put his hands around the back of our heads, so we were really close. Baba asked our name, where we're from, who our acharya was. And I said, Baba, I'd like to say namaskar for 3 people who were blacklisted. Sister Vimala from the United States, Acharya Valika from the Philippines, and one brother from London, I forget his name. I just met him one night in London. Baba and the brother beside me, Gurucharan, also gave the name of a sister from Australia. So Baba turned in his bed and he did this deep namaskar into space. And he turned back to us and he said, he pointed to the CBI officers. He said, they've created so many obstacles for my sons and daughters coming to see me. I need nothing, Baba said. And it's not my nature to ask for anything. But please, when you boys, 2 of us, establish Savipra Samaj, proud in the world, I want the first thing you do is do away with all these blacklists and visas and passports. We laughed and smiled and said, yes, Baba. We knew very well that Baba would do all this. We would just be kind of helping if we could. Baba then said, just as a guitar makes a very sweet sound, it needs a player. So you must be like guitars, but the player must be Parama Purusha. You must be cosmic sons of a cosmic father. Then he smiled and said, but I must correct myself. It should be cosmic sons of the cosmic father. Definite article, not indefinite article. I said, we're your sons, Baba. And he smiled. He told us we must never hate ourselves. He said, let others hate you, but you must never hate yourselves. I suddenly said, Baba, I'm going to training center today to become a whole-timer. Baba smiled. I said, Baba, do you have a new name for me? He paused for a moment, and then he said, if you like, your name shall be Priyadarshi. It means one who always looks on the bright side of things, an eternal optimist. talked about gender segregation in schools. He said in primary school, it's not so important. In university, where students have an awakened sense of responsibility, it's fine for all the boys and girls to be together. However, in high school, the age of adolescence, where the sex instincts awaken, but not yet a sense of responsibility, it's better if boys and girls are taught separately in separate schools. Suddenly I heard from behind me, time, meaning our 20 minutes was up. I thought that sound was probably the worst sound I ever heard in my life because I was enjoying sitting with Baba very much. Baba said, you know, in this universe, there are 3 fundamental factors: time, place, and person. But of these 3 factors, time is the most naughty factor. You can do Guru Puja now if you like. So we knelt beside his bed and sang Guru Puja. I kept my eyes open and just watched Baba. After every verse, he had his closed eyes, he did namaskar. And at the very end, as we were leaving, Baba said, make yourself strong with your sadhana, your service, and your sacrifice. So I left very, very happy. And that day I went to training in Kathmandu, in Benares, but the police were coming every day looking for foreigners. So after 3 days, I was sent to Kathmandu. And Dada Maheshvarananda, he was our trainer. He was still a brahmachari at that time. And for 3 months I was there. The classes were excellent. Dada Krishna Sevananda was with me, as with Sister Malati. She was taking Tattvika training. The last week or so of the training, in all training centers, there's something called SPT. Stands for Special Psychic Training. But traditionally in India, it means that the trainees go out alone, wearing the cheapest cotton burlap cloth, the kind they make rice sacks out of. So my trainer had bought a couple meters of this, and I wrapped myself in this. Could use my lingota. He had me wear a white t-shirt too. He said, this is the first time in Kathmandu anybody's ever done this, so better you wear a white t-shirt too. Okay. So I used this I had 2 pieces, one like a lungi and one like a shawl. And he gave me a little metal cup. And the rules were simple. I couldn't wear any shoes for that week, any sandals, barefoot. Couldn't use a comb or oil, so my hair started to look like a bee's nest. Couldn't use any soap. Couldn't use toothbrush or toothpaste. We used the stick of neem, which the people in India do, and it's very useful. You peel away the bark. Neem is excellent for teeth. And when I had to go out every day as a beggar, as a traditional beggar, I was only allowed to say one phrase from the Bhagavad Gita, Hari Om Tat Sat, which basically means the only truth is God, something like that. And if anybody asked me to explain what I was doing, I could explain, but then I couldn't accept anything from them. I could only accept any money or any food that was offered with just the phrase Hari Om Tat Sat. Hindi didn't matter much because I didn't speak Nepali or Nawadi. So the first day I went out walking, and some children immediately ran nearby, and they asked me in English, "What's your name, mister? Where are you going, mister?" I smiled. I think that finished their English vocabulary at that point, and they ran off, little kids. But I thought, those are very significant questions. What's my name? I'm your son, Baba. And where am I going? I'm going back to you, Baba. So I would walk, find a little forest, do meditation, wash by a stream. I'd stop at the shops, and I quickly learned that the shopkeepers throughout Nepal and India would keep a little metal cup with the smallest coin. I think it's 5 paisa coin. A little coffee can, by the front of their shop. Any beggar came, the moment they come, they put 1 coin to them. And the custom in India and Nepal is if you get something, you have to leave. You can't ask for more. That's not allowed. So that 5 paisa coin, of course, was less than 1 US penny. But still, if you go to a lot of shops, you can probably get enough food for a day. I found that if I ever stopped with rich house, I either got nothing or very little. But poor people would often give me more. So every night I would hand over all the coins to the trainer, and whatever uncooked rice or potatoes or other food that I got, I would cook that on a fire on the rooftop of the training center. And I'd eat that. That was my food for the day. Only what I had received, nothing else. The third day has come, and I'm walking by this stream. I take a bath in the river, and I lay my clothes out to dry. When I'm finished, I'm walking along the river, the rule was we had to go a different place every day. So I'm walking along this little path along this river, and I come into a very poor village. 2 women are sitting on the grass in front of their little house. That's very common in Nepal because it's very high. So in the shade, it's very cool, but there's like 40 degrees difference in the sun. And they're sitting in the sun and enjoying the morning. And I don't think very much whether I should ask them or not ask them, so I just pause in front of them and say, Hari Om Tat Sat. They look at me, barefoot, a bee's nest. Obviously, I'm some kind of beggar, but who is this guy? Then they said something to each other, and they both reached in their purse, and they pulled out a coin purse, and each took 2 coins and put in my metal cup. Then they stood up and accompanied me to the next house. And they called out their neighbor and told, I don't know what, I don't speak Nawadi. They said something, and that neighbor gave me a handful of uncooked rice. And they went to the next neighbor who gave me 3 tiny potatoes, and the next, and the next, and every house in that village gave me something. At the end, I just turned and gave a deep namaskar as a way of saying thank you. and I walked on. I'm not the same person who entered that village because I'd always been afraid. What will happen if I'm in a foreign country, if I have no money, if I get sick? What will happen to me? And I realized that my life is dedicated in service to humanity. I only have to focus on how I can help, physically, mentally, spiritually. But I don't have to worry about myself. Humanity will take care of me. I never forgot that lesson. I was a little bit nervous about the training. I was leaving the only country I'd ever known, the United States. And I knew our Ananda Marga had a policy of always posting workers to other countries and other sectors. I've always had trouble learning languages, always, which I saw as a big handicap in my work. But I think that many people talk about world peace, but I think to make world peace, we have to spend time with people from other countries, other cultures. And I was nervous about being celibate. I don't know what I'm going to feel like tomorrow, what to speak of the rest of my life. But the orange means my life is dedicated in service to humanity, renunciation. And as a renunciate, I can work 24/7. I can go anywhere at any time. I've lived and worked in 32 different countries. I can name every one. I've been there at least a couple weeks in each country. Each country has problems, but I love the people and I love the country. A month after my training was finished, I was waiting in Kathmandu to go back to the United States. To go to my first posting. And the same day that the newspaper arrived announcing that P.R. Sarkar was being released from India in a few days, it came out on the front page of the Nepali papers and all over India. The same day, my air ticket arrived to go to Spain, my first posting. But I was blacklisted now. And India had put a stamp in my passport and written canceled, which was their way so that any immigration officer anywhere, Indian immigration officer, would look in your passport to see any stamps you've been to India before. And if it says canceled, that means he's on the blacklist. Look at your blacklist, you'll find him. So I told the trainer, I want to go see Baba, but I can't. My trainer, who'd never been out of India, looks at my ticket and says, Kathmandu, Delhi, Italy and Spain. He says, why don't you get down in Delhi? I said, Dada, it's impossible. First of all, it's impossible because of the black mark. And even the technicalities of getting a temporary visa in India, you had to be out of the country for at least 6 months before you could get another one. And I'd only been out for a month. So even technically it wasn't possible. He said to me, no. That's their job to decide whether or not to give you a visa. Your job is to try. Don't do their work for them. So I wore plain clothes. I have an Indian cloth bag. I'd sold my backpack and all my belongings to help the training center. Had a couple uniforms and some books, and that was it. So I was just hand carry. And I flew to Delhi, a flight plane load full of tourists going from Nepal back to Europe. I was the only passenger who got down in Delhi. For 45 minutes, the plane was on the ground. I ran to the immigration and said, look, I want to see a friend of mine. I just need 2 weeks. And because the airport was empty, it's 11 o'clock at night, 2 other immigration officers walked over, and all 3 of them are standing in front of me looking at the passport. One has 3 stars on his shoulders. Obviously a high official, right? I'm babbling some silly story about wanting to see some American friend while they're turning the pages. They get to the page with a black mark. Here's your visa, you can enter. Thank you. Baba made them blind. I don't know how he did it. I walk out of it, I get in a taxi, an auto taxi, I go to the train station, get the first train to Patna, and I arrive the day after Baba has gotten out of jail. Baba made them blind. When I went back to see Baba a year later, 6 months later, I was been transferred to Indonesia to work as the regional secretary in Indonesia. And so I get a new passport, no black mark this time. And I'm gonna fly to Bangladesh and to Calcutta. I knew that if I got deported, they would put me back on the same plane where I came from. So I intentionally bought a ticket, Europe, Dhaka, Bangladesh, Calcutta. It's a very short flight. Back to Dhaka, and then on to Bangkok, my posting in Southeast Asia. And sure enough, when I got in Calcutta, this time, they found my name on the blacklist. I was held by all these armed guards in the transit lounge. They thought I was very dangerous. And they deported me back to Dhaka. And there, I managed to find Krishna Sevananda, who was working underground at that time. And he helped me go to the border. And I got to the border, and I found a way to walk at night, at midnight, around the immigration, 7 miles, following the train tracks into India. Got the first train in the morning to Calcutta. I snuck into India. And I got my personal contact with Baba. He was staying at the Rutdeen Hotel in Calcutta. He was putting pressure because his Lake Gardens home wasn't ready yet. And in that hotel room, I got what I thought was 2 minutes. Maybe it lasted 4 or 5 minutes. It was a very short personal contact. But I was very happy. I sat in front of Baba. He said, sit in proper posture. So I sat in lotus. And he said, he asked me my name, and then he started firing questions at me very fast. And finally, he said, could you take a human skull in your hands and kiss it with your lips? I'm saying, yes, Baba, yes, Baba, yes, Baba, without even thinking. He said, could you go to a cemetery, go to a burial ground bones and all around you? Yes, Baba. And could you stay there at 1 o'clock in the morning? Without thinking, I said, by your grace, Baba. Said, very good, be 10% human, you can go now. It was really fast. But I was in bliss. I'm a brahmachari and knew Dada, but obviously Baba's talking about kapalic sadhana that I know Avadhutas do. And that's all I wanted, so Baba's telling me I'm going to get what I want eventually. In 1979, Baba came to Bangkok. He was on a world tour, his second world tour. First was Bangkok, then he was supposed to go to the Philippines, then to Taiwan. When he arrived in Bangkok, I was the only whole-timer at that point who was working in the countries of Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. On the same day that Baba arrived, two new workers arrived. Ananda Subhashisha just came from training center. She was going to work in Singapore. And Paramahamsa arrived. He was from Norway. He was going to work in Thailand. But I was the host, the regional secretary for all those countries. And there were only about 20 Margis who came from Singapore, and there was only a handful of workers came with him. When Baba arrived, he came, and I didn't know how to make small talk. I didn't make small talk with Baba. But he said, chatting is like conversation in a jolly mood. And he was good at that. He and the Margis went to Sham Bang's house in Delhi. That's where Baba would stay. And the rest of us would stay in a tiny student's apartment a few blocks away. Baba was incredible. He had workers' meetings where he's very, very serious, and at the same time he suddenly is very sweet. Dada Maheshvarananda was taking a report of him, and he was the acting general secretary because the GS couldn't come. And while he's standing reading the report in the workers' meeting, literally the paper is shaking because he's trembling, and Baba's shouting at him, why no work is done, why there aren't daily newspapers coming out of Thailand, proud newspapers every day. And then he suddenly says, what is news? To us very sweetly. He asked me, what is news, my boy? He says, it's all the information from north, east, west, and south. NEWS. There was a darshan at the Midday. In the living room, Baba's sitting, we have a little couch for him. We're all sitting there. We have to do Tandava and Kaushiki. There's only 2 brothers, 2 sisters for each of these. Baba said it's very important that the fingers should touch the floor when you go down in Kaushiki. And then in the darshan, the darshan is recorded in the publications. He's saying about the sentiment to do service is very noble, he said. One portion of your mind is saying, today I'll take hot rice. Another portion is saying, in the near future, I'll try to go to Calcutta. Another portion of your mind is saying, now I'll have to do some relief service to the people. Another portion is saying, I should do something concrete for the refugees, because at that time Vietnamese boat refugees were coming to Southeast Asia, to all the countries of Southeast Asia. Baba says, there are many thoughts within your mind. Another portion of your mind is saying, I'll become a whole-time worker. I'll leave my house. Another portion is saying, oh, but my mother will be weeping. Another portion is saying, no, I have to do something for the greater world. After the darshan, as he's getting ready to go, he puts his feet down to put his slippers on. I'm sitting right in the front, and Sister Savitri from Singapore is sitting right beside me. Suddenly she screams and leaps at Baba's feet, and she grabs them very tightly. Jyotirishwar is our VSS brother, and he gallantly goes over and tries to pull her off. Very difficult. She's very strong, holding onto Baba's feet and crying loudly. And Baba's watching with a very sweet smile and saying, what did I tell you? The heart is sentimental. The tears come from happiness. Sentiment is stronger than reason, Baba said, right? On a field walk, it's a dark night, and for some reason there weren't street lights, so the guard has a flashlight, and a whole group of us is walking with Baba. We had told the Margis, don't ask questions of Baba, just let him speak. If he asks you a question, you can answer, but don't bother Baba. Let him say what he wants to say. But there's this brother, Sanjay from Singapore, who blurted out, Baba, do you speak Chinese? Baba pretended he did not hear anything. He just goes on chatting about something. Then he stops and he points to one tree. It's dark, it's night, there's no street lights. But he's told the name of this tree in 6 different languages. He told the name in Bengali language, Sanskrit language, Hindi, Thai language, Malay language, and Chinese. He told the history of the species, how it was introduced to Thailand. Then he points to another tree. In the dark, it's just a black shape to me. I can't even see anything about it. And again, he starts telling the name of that tree in all 6 languages. And he did this for 4 more trees along the road. Later, I asked Sanjay, did you know the names of those trees in Chinese? He said, Dada, I majored in Chinese. It's my mother tongue. No, I didn't know. Baba was teaching me Chinese. Baba and his party went to the airport on Friday, August 10th, to fly to the Philippines. There he spoke about the English language. He said, I have no special sentiment for English. I use it as a link language. It allows people who speak many different languages to communicate with one another. He flies. All the 20 Margis go back to Singapore by train. Suddenly, that evening, we learned that Baba's been deported. President Marcos in the Philippines had not allowed Baba to come. So he and the others with him all were sent back on an empty Thai Airlines plane back to Bangkok. When he got there, an official, Thai Airlines official, ran and asked for payment for their ticket back to Thailand. They only had a ticket to Philippines. Baba argued in front of everyone. Baba pointed out, wait a minute, we only get boarding passes when the payment had been finalized. We were given boarding passes. So you can ask for money now. The official's speechless, and he leaves. But the immigration officials in Thailand, they didn't know whether to allow Baba back or not. So Baba said, it might have been that the Philippines were not respectful of monks. In Thailand, Buddhist monks are very highly respected everywhere. They're allowed to ride free on the buses. People give them offerings every day when they go out begging. And so it certainly touched their sentiment when Baba said it was because of the monks that they were deported. But still, it was difficult because they made a rule that every passenger, every one of the Baba and the 7 others, all had to have a ticket, an onward ticket, and some show money. I forget how much, $200 maybe. So Abhidevananda was with Baba, and he managed to get a ticket and money for Baba and Ramananda, the PA. And so he said, Baba, you can go and you can take a taxi to Sham's house and stay with him. But Baba wouldn't go unless Abhidevananda promised that he could get everybody out. Abhidevananda didn't know he couldn't get enough money and tickets to get everybody out. But he promised, and so Baba left. And the regional secretary, who was the new Dada from Norway, and I were in this little slum house, and Sham Sundar came to us to tell us Baba had been deported. So we took a bus to the airport, and I found the 2 Didis who were, Ananda Subhashisha and Nivadita, were going to Philippines. Found them, so we scrambled to get the money and tickets, and finally by 11 o'clock everybody was out. So I accompanied Baba again on 3 more field walks. On one of these he talked about Thailand. And he said how the ancient history, and he said how the first civilization came there from Bengal, India. He dismissed the current theory that the historians teach in Thai schools that the people come from Chinese. He said, really, there are almost no Chinese words in the Thai language. Once he said, you know, I'm not a teacher. I'm a student. Krishna once said that even if a man really knows everything, still he should pretend that he does not. But I do not pretend. I really don't know anything, Baba said. A Thai Margi who was with us asked about communism. And Baba said the communist theory is based on the principle of equality, which is against the laws of nature. Communism destroys the culture, traditions, and heritage of a country. Thailand would become a Chinese country if the communism took over. The Chinese communists are even destroying their own culture in China. He said there was danger in Thailand of invasion from Vietnam through Cambodia. He wanted the boy to learn proud and to unite the Thai people against communism. Then the Margi brother, who was a musician, young, asked what the future of music would be like. Baba began by explaining that folk music of every country is simple music, easy to listen to, popular music. Higher than folk music, Baba said, is classical music, which means refined music. He mentioned Western classical music, Indian classical music, and Chinese classical music. This is refined music. You have to listen more than once to appreciate it. Higher than classical music is kiirtan, music which causes you to lose yourself in it. Bhajans, which are spiritual or devotional songs, are a high form of classical music, he said, bhajans. Higher than classical music and bhajans is kiirtan, music which causes you to lose yourself in it. Listening to kirtan causes you to forget the time, forget whether you've eaten, to forget sleeping. It causes you to lose yourself in the music. Higher than that, he said, is only God. That is why after bhajans, your mind doesn't wish to listen to classical music. And after kirtan, you don't want to hear more bhajans. You only want to meditate. If you ever want to compose a new piece of music, he said, you should do it after meditation. Then Bob explained why he had been deported and refused visas in different countries. They say I am a dangerous man. I'm not a dangerous man. I'm a strong man. Imagine. They're scared of me, and I'm only 5'2" tall. You know how a fish store smells? Ugh. But some people like that fishy smell. Only those who like the fishy smell of selfishness are afraid of me. Selfishness is a mental disease, and they know the proud gives no scope for selfishness. You know Shyam Sundar, who was walking with us. My workers do my mission. I only assist them. We asked Baba to sit on a bench. It was night. And to rest before going back. The park bench we stopped at was very small. He started to sit, but suddenly he stopped and said, "But where will you sit?" I answered, "On the grass at your feet, Baba." "But the grass is wet, I think," Baba said. I felt it with my hand as we sat. Of course it was wet, it had just been raining. But I didn't care, so I lied. I said, "It's not wet, Baba." So Baba sat down and we sat down. Strange thing though, Baba was there for 10 minutes and none of us got wet, the three of us who were sitting on the grass. While Baba talked, I get a sense of how strong he was. This is the man who had endured 7 years in prison, 5 years fasting, never gave in. He then quoted a poem by Rabindranath Tagore. "When the serpents are breathing out venom, then should I give a call for peace? No, people will think I'm a fool. So before I die, I should rather give a clarion call to those who are preparing in every house to fight against the demons." Then Shyam Sundar asked Baba, "What should we do when we encounter psychic torture? Should we tolerate it or try to change it?" Baba answered, 2 things must be kept in mind. First, we should make ourselves psychically strong. Second, we should think carefully before taking any step. Never speak or write anything against MIPs until you're strong enough to defeat them. What are MIPs? Men in power. Keep mum. Don't be foolish. Speak plainly and simply. Be straightforward, but don't be foolish. Do not speak directly against demons, or they may become brutish. Even about Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, she was the one who'd imprisoned him all this time. I always used good language. In public speaking, he said, the science of oratory is your strength. On the battlefield, your banner, your flag is your strength. In danger, patience is your strength. Baba said, I faced much danger in the past. Once, when I was a boy of 18, our house was surrounded by a mob in communal riots. These are the riots between the Hindus and the Muslims. But I kept my patience, took correct action, and we survived. There's danger even now. We must always keep our patience. In Bangkok, there was one mystery that I never understood. The first day in the workers' meeting, 3 of us sat right in front of Baba. Baba pointed to Paramahamsa from Norway, who had just finished, said, "You are my Sanskrit teacher." He pointed to Dada Maheshvarananda sitting right beside him. He said, "You are my Hebrew teacher." Then he pointed to me and said, "You are my Latin teacher." Didn't make any sense to me at all. I didn't know any Latin. But Baba seemed to think that this was a wonderful idea, because every time he saw me, he repeated it. He'd be coming down the stairs. Sham Sundar would be walking beside. He'd see me at the bottom of the stairs. He'd say, "Who's that? Who's that?" And Sham Sundar would have to say, "He's your Latin teacher, Baba." "Yes, my Latin teacher, my Latin teacher." 5 times he's saying this. I have no idea why. So one day we're walking, after Baba came back. We're walking in the park. And instead of listening carefully to Baba, I'm thinking, how am I going to ask this question? I think very carefully in my mind. Get the wording just right. And when Baba sits down, I'm waiting till nobody's talking, right? When he sits down on the bench, Abhidevananda's Dada's getting some coconut water for him. Dr. Pathak, who was there, he was writing notes in his notebook. Baba's not talking. I say, "Baba?" "Yes." "Why do you say I'm your Latin teacher?" "What?" Okay, try again. "Baba, why do you call me your Latin teacher?" "I understand your words, but they don't make any sense." Now, this plant here is very interesting. It has medicinal purposes, this plant. I think Baba knew perfectly well what I was thinking, even without me saying it. But obviously, Baba didn't want to answer the question. Never again in my life did Baba ever mention that I was his Latin teacher. I thought maybe he's referring somehow to my past life. But 12 years after Baba left, 12 years later, after Baba left, I was suddenly posted from Southeast Asia, where I thought I would spend the rest of my life, to South America. And desperately, I had to learn Spanish and Portuguese, two daughters of Latin, as Baba often said. So involuntarily, I'm learning Latin as fast as I can. I think that's what Baba was referring to when he called me his Latin teacher, and why he wouldn't answer the question. If he had told me in the future you're going to be posted to South America, I would have done just what he didn't want me to do. I would have stopped thinking about Southeast Asia where I was working, and I would have started thinking about South America. And that's not what he wanted at all. I think he just wanted to let me know that in the future, he knew where I'd be going. I'm working in Southeast Asia. I go in 1981 to Philippines. And I have a problem that's slowly getting worse. I have a kidney stone. The first attack came when I was in Spain. A year later, the second attack came when I was in Indonesia. And I had learned that by relaxing my body, it would float free. But by the time I got to the Philippines, the attacks were coming every day. So I needed an operation. And in those days, you start cutting at the front all the way to the back, and you have to reach almost very deep to get the kidney stone out. So it was a painful time. I spent a month recovering. But that whole time I felt that Baba was with me. I had a little photo of Baba beside me, listening to kiirtan on a CD player, on a little cassette player. So a year later, 1983, when I'm going to India, I wanted to somehow say thank you to Baba for everything he'd done for me. But when you can't interrupt Baba. You can't suddenly say, Baba, I want to say something. It's not like that. It's not allowed. And I didn't know what I wanted to say either. Then I decided what I wanted to say. I wanted to tell Baba that I was his son. It didn't make any sense, but I felt that Baba would understand if I said that, all the gratitude I had. So the next day, in the reporting session, Baba suddenly said something about English. And he suddenly asked the 20 workers of us who were standing there in the reporting, which of you have English as your mother tongue? There were only two of us, myself and Dada Maheshvarananda. You two come and stand here beside me. And Baba began to give us a quiz in English. He asked each of us 7 questions in English. So the first one, what's the Latin adjective for cow? I said, I don't know, Baba. Baba said, vaccine. Vaca is cow in Spanish and Portuguese, Latin languages. And actually the first vaccine was created when the doctor discovered that the people who milk the cows, the women who milk the cows, got an enzyme from the cows that made them immune to smallpox. So the first vaccine he called vaccine, and ever since all vaccines are called that. What's the Latin adjective for buffalo? I don't know, Baba. Bovine. What's the Latin adjective for blood? I said, bloody? No, the Latin adjective. I don't know, Baba. Sanguine, or sanguinary. Battle is a violent battle. Which is correct, between each other or between one another? I guessed. No, Baba said. The first is correct when two objects are involved only. And between one another is correct when there's more than two. Very logical, but I didn't know that. Which is correct, Baba said, in the north, on the north, or to the north. I guessed. Baba said, no. All three are correct. Then he uses his slipper and his stick on the carpet, and he says, in the north is correct when the object lies within the referred area. For example, Kashmir is in the north of India. It's part of India. Second is correct on the north when the object is outside but adjacent to the object, such as Nepal is on the north of India. The third is correct to the north, such as Beijing, the capital of China, is to the north of India. All three are correct in different circumstances. Then Baba sweetly told us about the attitude, I don't know. Without that attitude, we can never learn anything. A person who thinks he or she knows everything is in fact quite ignorant, Baba said. A humble, questioning attitude is required to learn more knowledge and gain true wisdom. Baba explained that even Krishna, who was Tathagata Brahma, knew everything, but he pretended he did not know. But as for me, Baba said, I really don't know. Then Baba pointed to us and said, you boys know so much. What does Baba know? He said, Baba, you know everything. No, Baba knows nothing. Baba knows nothing. Then Baba asked me one question. He says, how do you pronounce the word that is spelled K-N-I-F-E? I say knife, Baba. Very good. Why is the K mute, silent? Once again, I don't know, Baba. It comes from the French word canif. So when that word canif entered the English usage, the first K was maintained, but it became silent. Then Baba surprised me by asking, why do you know so much? How do you know so much? My mind raced very quickly. I thought, Baba, you've just proven that I don't know English, okay? But then I get the inspiration and I suddenly shout out, because I'm your son, Baba. Baba said, well, what did he say, GS? What did he say? GS is laughing so hard, he repeats, he says he's your son, Baba. Very good, very good. And this was what I wanted to tell Baba, right? And he makes this whole drama for half an hour just to let me say that. Later, all these points about English were put in that beautiful book, Sarkar's English Grammar and Composition. It's an excellent book, I recommend it. It'll teach English to anybody, even me. When I first wanted to become a whole-timer, I was in the United States as an LFT for 2 years. And I watched some Dadas and Didis quit. I felt that is not going to happen to me. And actually, from then, in the 50 years since then, I've never considered it. People are different, but for me, I never considered quitting, and I'm determined I'm going to be a sannyasi even in my future lifetimes. But I can make mistakes, and I know I can sometimes make really stupid mistakes. And I thought to myself, what happens if I make such a stupid mistake that they kick me out of the organization? And I decided back then that if that ever happens, wherever I am in the world, I'm going to fly back to India and go back to the Benares training center, the training center I knew. And I'd ask to be allowed to retrain. Maybe they wouldn't allow me. If they wouldn't allow me, I'd sit outside and wait. 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, the rest of my life, because this is all I want. Well, Baba made this happen in a strange way. In 1985, I was working in Manila, Philippines. I was the sectorial office secretary. And Baba suddenly announced in India that he was starting a global review. All the sectorial secretaries were there. Then he called all the sectorial Eros secretaries to go to India. Then he called all the trainers to go to India. And then he called all the office secretaries to go to India. We were given 5 days notice, but I only got the call. You couldn't go early. Baba sent people back if they went early. But I got the call only 4 days before I had to reach India. Somehow, I borrowed a ticket. I went to Bangladesh. I crossed at night as I'd done before. Did that 13 times. But this time I'm crossing at night. I take the train to Calcutta and I arrive just 2 hours before the deadline. Put on my uniform, I run to GS, and I said, I made it, I'm in time. And he said, yes, but you know, the way this works is that you were not submitting every day the consolidated daily reports of Manila sector. That was your responsibility, and you weren't sending those every day. So we already told Baba that you're inefficient. So all the workers who are late or inefficient, Baba said they have to take off their uniform, they're expelled, and they have to go wait out in the street. Now this is a drama, Baba, don't worry. I am miserable. I take off my uniform, put on white civil clothes. I go out in the street with the other workers who had been expelled or late. I decide I'm going to fast. And Dada Krishnananda comes running up to me and says, you're not allowed to fast. So what do you mean I'm not allowed? The one thing in Ananda Marga you can always do is you have the right not to eat. No. Baba gave strict orders that those expelled workers are not allowed to fast. They have to eat. Except on fasting days. Everything I ate that time I was outside tasted like old newspaper. I'm so unhappy. But one by one, 3 other sectorial office secretaries arrived from different countries late. It was Dada Maheshvarananda. And so the 5 of us are outside on the street. And every day Baba would come out, get in his car and drive past us And then he would ask, he says, why are they standing out there? Why don't they go stand in the Bay of Bengal? You know, sweet, inspiring things to inspire us. He would never look at us, always look the other direction. Miserable. But there's a saying that misery loves company. So at least I had my 4 friends with me, all office secretaries. One by one, he was called in the other workers. And finally, on the 6th night, 6 nights we've been out there. And he calls us, GS calls us to the gate, and he says, you 3 workers who came late, you can come inside and put on your orange and white uniforms. And you, the SOS and Kahida, you're a new worker, so you can come in too. Just you, pointing at me, you stay out a little bit longer. It's night. I go back on the sidewalk, and now I'm crying. I mean, and even as I'm crying, I'm thinking, Baba, what you had to do to make me cry? I don't cry easily. But you made me feel friendship with all these guys, and you take them away from me, and now I'm completely alone. The next morning, I'm sitting there alone, and the office secretary comes out, the central office secretary, my superior, and sits beside me. And he said, I just came from Baba's room. Every day, Baba would ask how all they are, but now I'm the only one, so Baba called me by name and asked, how is he doing? He told me that he said to Baba, Baba, he's crying every day. I felt like crying every day, but last night I'm really crying. And then he said, Baba, he'd rather give up his life than leave your mission. And I thought, that's true. I sure feel that. And then he says, Baba said to him, I know he loves me very much. And I also love him very much. But I have to be strict with my organization. And I thought, in my life, he never said it quite so beautifully, quite so sweetly as that. So I was allowed to come in a few hours later. I also had to wear orange and white again for 4 more months until I got permission to wear my full uniform again. Baba said there are 3 reasons why people get punished in the spiritual path. The first is because you did something wrong. The second reason is you didn't do anything wrong, but somebody else did something wrong. And so Baba would often punish senior workers to teach other people who weren't so strong that they should not do that. And the third reason is nobody did anything wrong, but he wants to test you. He wants to make you stronger. I think all 3 reasons were the reason he was punishing me that day and other days. I was not allowed to go for Dharma Samiksha, which is where Baba would check the 16 points of everyone. I had just been to India. We didn't have any money, so I couldn't go again. But a couple years later, I'm in reporting. And suddenly, I'm giving the report for Manila sector, how many schools we'd opened, how many initiations, the other things. And I was finished. And suddenly Baba said, wait, call him back, come here. Just now, a flying buffalo came and spoke in my ear, Baba said. Have you ever seen a flying buffalo with wings? I said, no, Baba. But just now, he's speaking to me in my ear. You know what he told me? One time, you were walking and eating peanuts. Now, we're not supposed to eat while standing up. Baba says you should sit down, you should take a half bath first. But one time in Manila, I got off the bus, and it was 5 blocks through the marketplace to get to the sectorial office. And there was a little vendor selling peanuts, and I was really hungry. So I bought a little newspaper pack of peanuts, and I ate them as I walked through the market. When I finished, namaskar, namaskar. I didn't tell anybody what I did. How did Baba know it was peanuts and not popcorn or something else? Then Baba said, and one time you put some white powder on your hair? What was that? Just coming to India, they couldn't allow, if you had long hair, they would suspect you of being an Ananda Marga Acharya. So I got a haircut, and it was in Singapore, and I went to a barber alone. Margie pointed me where I should go. I went to a barber. He didn't speak English. I didn't speak Chinese, but pointed, haircut, 3 Singapore dollars, okay. So I showed him where I wanted to cut. He's cutting away. I'm thinking about going to India tomorrow. And then he takes some baby powder, talcum powder, and he puts it on the back of my neck. He's going to shave the back of my neck. Stop, don't. Acharyas have a rule that we're not allowed to use anything that's perfumed. And the talcum powder, the baby powder, is perfumed. But all I can do is brush it off, so he brushed it off. So what was that white powder you put on your hair? I said, talcum powder. Yes. Is that right? Yes, use your stick. You beat him a little bit. And then Baba said, and one time you took something that had an intoxicating effect on your nerves? Since I've been a whole-timer, I've strictly followed a sentient diet. And whole-timers are not allowed to take anything with caffeine either. Caffeine is rajasic, it's a stimulant. It's in coffee, dark chocolate, tea. But I don't want to tell Baba he's wrong. So instead, I'm diplomatic. I said, it won't happen again, Baba. Very good. Okay. That night, when I went back to my room in the central office, the moment I'd meditate for a minute before I slept, and I put my head down, and immediately I'm out. But that night, I lay my head on the mat, and immediately I saw film, perfect film of me 5 years before in Indonesia. I'd initiated a bookstore owner. I inspired him to do mass feeding. We fed 200 people. And then we came in and had breakfast together, and he gave me some sweet milk, rose-colored milk for breakfast. And we're having our food. And when we finished, he said, would you like some more? And I said, sure. And he used some condensed milk and rose water somehow, rose flavoring. And then he took the tea and he started pouring tea in. don't drink tea. But I'd already drunk 1 cup of it. I don't remember that. I mean, I can't take it out after I drank it, so I just forgot about it. It's 5 years ago. And this film comes perfectly in my mind. I see exactly what Baba was punishing me for. And then he said, you know, he goes to personal things, organizational things. He says, in the month of August, you didn't follow your tour program. Now, this was September. I followed my tour program in September. I followed it in the month before, in July, but not in August. In August, I'd been in Kuala Lumpur, and I told Dada Maheshvarananda, who's staying with me in the jog, look, I'm going to go to Singapore for just 1 night and come back. It's 18 hours only. Overnight bus, buy some electronics, bring it back. Somebody wants it. I'll just give it to them. I said, if anybody calls, tell them that I've just gone to Singapore and I'll be back tomorrow. I asked Rosak, did you ever tell anybody? No, of course not. I didn't tell anybody because nobody called. But I should have told the sectorial office I was doing an extra trip. And he said, Baba said, in your office, there's some reports you're not keeping. What are those? My accounts, Baba. Yes. Why you're not keeping those accounts strictly? Beat him. Finally, we're done. And I'm very blessed. I feel very blessed. I go back. And suddenly, call him back again. One worker in Manila sector is eating betel nut. Betel nut is a nut that's chewed in India. Makes your mouth all red. You spit out this red juice. It makes a lot of saliva. It constantly makes juice. And it's a little bit rajasic. We shouldn't be taking it. And he didn't accuse me of taking it. He said, another worker in Manila sector is doing this. Beat him. And Baba's very serious now. So for the first time, General Secretary is hitting kind of hard. Later with the sectorial secretary, we couldn't even think of any work. It's only available in a few places in Malaysia. I mean, you can't even get betel nut in Manila sector. No worker was taking it. I don't believe it. But I've made other mistakes in my life. Baba obviously wanted to punish me for those. So I was getting a little more. In 1987, I'm in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and I'm giving a lecture to a small group of people about Ashtanga Yoga, the Eightfold Path of Yoga. And suddenly, I'm saying that the last of these 8 is samadhi. And suddenly I feel like a hypocrite. I've never experienced samadhi. I'm trying to teach this. But how can I teach it if I've never experienced it? And I've read in 2 books, Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahamsa Yogananda, Living with the Himalayan Masters by Swami Rama. They almost tell the same story, that they become so desperate for samadhi that they're about to commit suicide. At the last second, their guru stops them, gives them samadhi. They said their meditation was never the same again. So, I make a plan. I'm going to start fasting with lemon water. I can fast a long time with lemon water and salt. And I decided I'm going to go up into the mountains. One brother, Guru Kesh, he was the manager of a tea plantation. And I went there with a lot of lemons and salt. And I said, I need a forest where there's drinking water. And he said, I know the perfect place because I tested the water myself. And it's pure drinking water. It's surrounded, this little woods is surrounded by the tea fields. But nobody ever goes in there. You'd be completely alone, which is what I wanted. When I got there, there's even a little cave, a small cave, but big enough that I can sit in and sleep in, keep me from the rain. So I decided I'm just going to stay there and fast and meditate until I get samadhi. Baba had other plans. By the third day, I get this sharp, sharp pain in my sciatic nerve behind my thigh. And it becomes terrible. It's excruciating pain. I can't kill myself. I have to leave. I just can't bear it. So, with great difficulty, I walk the 7 miles back to his cabin. I break my fast there. Gets a little bit better. Take a bus down to Kuala Lumpur. Margie takes me to see a doctor. And the doctor says it's caused by a pinched nerve in your lower spine. So he showed me a couple of movements to stretch the lower back. And he said, didn't you say you were a yoga teacher? Yeah, I did. Maybe you could find some yoga posture that would do that. So I went home and I did. I went through 40 postures in Charya, and I discovered that the difficult thunder pose, Utthita Vajrasana, actually stretches the lower back. Even if I can't do it perfectly, it doesn't matter. You just bend your knees down as low as you can. It stretches the lower back. And for me, it resolved the pain completely. And I've used that at least 30 more times in my life. Whenever I carried something too heavy and that pain came back, I would do that posture. It worked. But I didn't get my success in meditation that I wanted. So I go back to India for another reporting session. And every day that Bob would come out and go back to his house, we'd be standing there. And I'd think to myself, Baba, I want success in my sadhana. And I'm convinced that Baba knows perfectly well what I'm thinking. I don't have to say anything. I'm just thinking it, okay? So he does that, and I think, Baba, please give me success in my sadhana. And after one day, I think, Baba, this is stupid. I want you. I don't care about anything else, okay? I just want you. That day, Baba was giving what he called seminar class. Only senior avadhutas were allowed in the room in Baba's house in Lake Gardens. There were only about 25 of us who were there. And Baba was giving classes in biopsychology. He gave it over a series of 6 days, I think. And so Dada Maheshvarananda was taking notes very carefully, what Baba was saying. And later these were all put together in a series, in a chapter called Biopsychology in his book that later came out after his passing, yoga psychology. Well, each day he would do a demonstration at the beginning. So that day I'm standing there and I'm thinking, boy, Bob, I really wish you'd call me for the demonstration. But I'm not going to go there unless you call me personally. So he came in, sat down, we're there, they closed the doors. Baba says, I want someone to demonstrate. Dadaji Krishnanda runs up beside him very fast. Baba looks at him and says, no, too thin. You should be broad-chested. He runs back. Dadaji Ananda, who's very broad-chested, runs up, stands beside Baba. No, Baba says, he should be born in a cold country. Now, what are the cold countries? Baba starts naming them. Southern part of Chile and Argentina, island of Tasmania off Australia, Russia, Scandinavia, Canada, and the northern half of the United States. As Bob is naming these countries, all the other workers who are from India mostly realize I'm the only one and they're shouting my name to go, 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 go. So I walk up and stand beside Baba. And Baba he has his stick beside him and he starts giving a lecture. And he starts by saying, in the time of Shiva, yogis and biopsychologists preferred cold climates. In those days, they did all kinds of parapsychological research. Even now, yogis run to the Himalayas for this purpose. Ananda Marga sadhana is a biopsychological practice. I'm in heaven. I'm standing right next to Baba. He has his stick and he's waving it up and down in front of my body when he's talking about the chakras, as though he's teaching like a teacher. All these senior avatutas who know perfectly well where all the chakras are. He's kind of demonstrating by waving this in front of my body. Then he says, if in a particular life one performs sadhana but does not attain salvation, one will have to come back again. Under such circumstances, one may or may not remember one's past life. It depends on the pituitary gland. Then, in the latter part of one's present life, say at the age of 40 or later, if one's mind reaches the pineal gland, one will attain salvation. Then he asked me to sit down, and he asked me to hold one end of the stick and touch it to my Agya chakra and my Sahasrara chakra. And again, he's just blessing me because everybody knows where they are, but he's pretending to demonstrate. So if one does not attain salvation in a particular life, in the next life, after the testes glands or the ovaries start to function, one will have to become a spiritual aspirant, leaving one's hearth and home to become successful in spiritual life. Baba's now saying the word success, what I'd been asking for the day before, success in sadhana. At the end, he ended with my favorite phrase. He says, a spiritual aspirant is to perform spiritual practices to satisfy Parama Purusha in the form of Parama Guru. That is why it has rightly been said, Guru Kripahi Kevalam, Brahma Kripahi Kevalam. The grace of the Guru is everything. There's an expression, Ahituki Kripa, means grace without reason. I have received this my whole life because I don't deserve anything. I tried to say this in an article for Pragya Bharati magazine, and Dada Maheshvarananda says, you can't say that. It sounds like Baba's whimsical. But Baba is whimsical. No, you can't say that. So he didn't let me write that. But why Baba chose me, why Baba chose you to be on this spiritual path, we've done nothing to deserve it. It's a special grace without reason. I'm working in Indonesia in 1990. And there's a big retreat there. 300 people are there. And I'm fasting. And at midnight, I have a Baba dream. It's very short. I wake up and I immediately write it down. In the dream, I'm sitting in a car, and I know we're parked in front of Baba's house somewhere in the world. It's nighttime. Suddenly Baba gets out and he sits beside me. I immediately embrace Baba. And Baba said, thank you for the warning you gave to the organization so the organization could take steps in time. I have to leave now, Baba said. Don't you have any important work to do? I embraced Baba again. Baba got out of the car and went inside the house. I woke up and I understood nothing about what Baba said. A warning? Baba knows everything. How can I give a warning to the organization that Baba doesn't know about? Baba says, I have to leave now. Don't you have any important work? I'm just sitting here for 5 minutes with you, Baba. I'll go back to work. It's okay. But a week later, we get the news that Baba's left his physical body. And I realized that he wasn't talking about leaving the car. He was talking about leaving planet Earth, and he wanted to let me know that it was all planned, that he was planning to leave at this time. I went to India for his cremation memorial. It was so strange. I went to see the body. We could all go in to see the body in groups. Baba's so beautiful. And yet now the body's dead, which is ugly. So the strange feeling of beauty and ugliness is all tying me in knots. I walk out and I want to be alone. And there's no place you can be alone in Tilja when there's thousands of people camping out there waiting for the cremation. But I go into Baba's garden and nobody's there. I'm looking at all the plants and thinking, Baba walked here every day and he talked to these plants every day and gave directions that they all should be cared so carefully. And Baba won't be there anymore for those plants. And I started crying for the plants. And of course I'm crying for myself and everyone else. But Baba's still with us all the time. He gave me that dream, I realized, just to let me know, to prepare me, to let me know that it's all planned. He's not leaving. He's just leaving the physical body. He's with us all the time, and he's always teaching. From everyone we meet, everything we hear, he's with us all the time. In 1992, I was suddenly transferred to South America from Southeast Asia, where I'd been working. And I was the office secretary in Brazil. I don't speak Portuguese, Spanish. I'm desperately trying to learn those languages. And as soon as I arrived, there was planning underway for what was called the Earth Summit. This was the first time that world leaders were all going to come together, sponsored by the United Nations in Brazil, where I was, in Rio de Janeiro, to try to find a solution to the environmental crisis. Now, we weren't allowed to go in that meeting, but non-government organizations, Greenpeace, all the ecological friends of the earth, they all decided to hold a simultaneous public event in a park in Rio de Janeiro. It's right on the beach, and they fenced it off, and they allowed all different organizations, non-government organizations, to set up a booth there to distribute, and they made 12 tents that actually were like a conference room that about 150 people could sit in to listen to workshops, simultaneous workshops about the environmental crisis. So Prout and Ananda Marga, Avt, we all had a booth there. And by the time it started, there were over 1,000 organizations with booths there. And constantly, all 12 workshops were going on every hour with some famous speakers and some not so famous speakers like me, Ananda Mitra and others. But then, a month before this happened, we were invited to attend a meeting in Rio de Janeiro called by one of these tiny organizations, a Brazilian non-government organization, to plan an all-night vigil, an interreligious vigil. A vigil means you stay awake all night, is it? And the park would always close at 6 p.m. or something. But we had permission to keep the park open one night, the fourth night. And so we had this meeting in Rio de Janeiro to plan it. And frankly, I was suspicious. You know, religious people can be very dogmatic. But when I went to this little meeting in a classroom in Rio de Janeiro, I saw that Ruben Fernandez, the organizer, he greeted everyone who came with equal respect. The Catholic priest who came, the Lutheran minister who came, the Hare Krishna fellow who came, myself, every one of us, even the Candomblé and Umbanda, the Afro-Brazilian groups, using African traditions from the time of slavery. He gave us all equal respect, and that impressed me. And he said that each one of us could have one of these booths, one of these conference rooms, for 6 hours. We'd all start together in the amphitheater. And I suggested candles. Candles are nice at night. And they like that. So they'll have candles for everybody. And each group would have 2 minutes to invoke the Supreme, they said. However, whatever that means for you, 2 minutes. So they put all the religions in a hat, and we draw out to see, let fate decide, and it turns out that Ananda Marga was the first name chosen. So Dada Maheshvarananda and Didi Ananda Anodhyana would go to the microphone for 2 minutes, and they decided they would sing Sangha Chadwang and explain what it means, and Namaskar. And Didi would sit on the stage and Dada would go back. But then we had 6 hours in our room, it was made with a plywood floor and nice carpeting, had all electricity. It looked like a hall, but actually they were canvas, So we asked the Margis, what do you want to do for 6 hours? Akanda Kirtan. Okay. So they invited all their friends, and we would do that in our room for 6. That day, I'd been working in the sun all day at our booth, very hot and sweaty. And I found a friend who had a room across the street in the Gloria Hotel where I was allowed to take a shower. So I went up to that room, took a shower, and I got back in the elevator in this tall hotel. And as soon as I got in, there was an African-American man wearing a colorful dashiki, African colorful dress. And he said, "Are you a sannyasi?" I said, "Yes, how do you know?" "I was in India at the Kumbh Mela," he said. "I'm a drummer," he says. "I played with," and he named Paul Denver and all these other famous people I hadn't actually heard of. They were famous musicians. And I said, "Why don't you come to the interreligious program? We're going to have it tonight." And he said, okay, by the time we ended. This is just the elevator, right? So that night, we went to the amphitheater. It was beautiful. And then we went to do our Akanda Kirtan. Now, there were 90 Margis and friends of Margis who came for this. I had thought I'd have a real smart plan. I made a little leaflet, half page, explaining Kirtan, what it means, what it is, how to do it. In English on one side, Portuguese on the back side. Brazilians had the Portuguese, but there were a lot of international people there too for the English. So I had 2 Dadas who spoke fluent Portuguese and English. They've been working there a long time. Stand at the door with 500 leaflets each. And I said, you give this to anybody interested, and you can answer questions, English or Portuguese. If somebody's really interested, you can even, explain. It explains how to do the dance. I thought I was smart. When we started the Kirtan, it was loud, just because we're all inspired, right? Within 5 minutes, there are literally 1,000 people packed around this tent. The 2 Dadas couldn't say a word. The noise was so loud, they passed out the leaflets as fast as they could until they were finished in 10 minutes. Couldn't say a word. We throw open the sides of the tent and wrote on the blackboard, Bhavanam Kevalam in English and Portuguese. And I'm just watching this crowd of people, and I see the first college student standing right in front. She sees All the shoes are over here in the corner, so she throws off her shoes, puts up her hands, and starts dancing with us. 800 people joined us that night. It was incredible. The African-American drummer I told you I met in the elevator, he suddenly shows up, doesn't say a word, can't talk, so much noise. He looks around, sees a pair of tablas sitting over there. He sits in front of those, makes incredible magic with those tablas. For hours he plays with us. So the instruments, the singing was just incredible. All these people are pouring in. Reporters come in. Japanese television crew with the bright lights. They have it like that, showing us going around, you know. It's incredible. Finally, after 6 hours of kiirtan, the program's ending. We do our 30 minutes of meditation. And now it's time to go back to the amphitheater for the dawn closing ceremony. We get there, and it's been planned. They're already sitting on the stage. The religious leaders, I mean, these are the top religious leaders in this program. The Dalai Lama is coming, but he hasn't arrived yet. But this is Archbishop, I'm forgetting his name. He was the head of the Catholic Church, is sitting there. A Jewish rabbi is there. A Muslim imam is there sitting beside him. So about 10 famous religious leaders are sitting on the stage. We're not famous. But Nabanilananda and Sister Kamala from Australia and we quickly meet. And those two are planning to sit backstage just in case there was ever an opportunity to play. But the three of us are talking, and we decide that I don't think we should do our mantra, because people would think we're trying to, preach our religion. So they decided we'll just do an English song. And we're all decided that. Okay. So they go backstage. I sit where all the Dadas and Margis are sitting in one part of this crowd of 5,000 people in the amphitheater. But the Dalai Lama hasn't come yet. And he's kind of the guest of honor, right? So Ruben Fernandez gets at the microphone and he starts reading out, boring, the names of every organization and all the people in every organization that have been participating. And I forgot to say, we started out with 12 groups. There were 32 groups by the time the opening ceremony actually took place. Everybody started hearing about it, wanting to join in. So he's reading out this boring list of names, waiting, when some guy at the back starts shouting out in Portuguese, "You're all going to hell. Jesus Christ is the only way," like that. And nobody can stop him. There's no security or anything. So then Ruben Fernandez says at the microphone, "Now we'd like to ask the monks of Ananda Marga to please sing their mantra." What did he just say? Nabanilananda and Kamala run to the microphone. She tells what Bhavanam Kevalam means. They start singing. We sing. But all these other people in the crowd are singing too. Because 800 people have been singing with us all night, remember? And they all start singing along. This goes on for 5 or 10 minutes. The Dalai Lama arrives, so stops, and the show begins. It's beautiful. The Dalai Lama speaks. Beautiful classical singer sings. The Hare Krishna musicians are allowed to play Finally, it's over. And when it ends, the religious leaders on stage spontaneously stand and start embracing one another. But there's nothing else. Maheshvarananda runs to the microphone, but it's turned off now. He looks to the engineer, and the guy said, no, it's finished. He points to the microphone in front of all the people, the 5,000 people there, points to the engineer and says, the people all start shouting, turn on the microphone. I think the engineer was fearful for his life. He turned on the microphone. And then Dada said, I'm asking Paul Winter, who had played earlier, to please join me. Paul Winter comes up with his flute. Two other musicians run forward. He asked the Hare Krishna drummer to play with them. And they start playing kiirtan. And remember the African-American drummer I told you about in the dashiki? He runs to the front of the stage and he says, like this. And he starts dancing back and forth. And guess what? 5,000 other people stand up and they all start dancing back and forth like that. Brazilians, they love to sing and dance. This went on for 10 minutes. There were 200 journalists there. Television cameras are recording this. Finally, after 10 minutes or so, it stopped. But all of us, all the Margis who watched this thing happen, we can never forget it. And I realized something. I had always heard that Bhavanam Kevalam is a universal mantra. And I understood that to mean that if you don't have a personal mantra, you can use this universal mantra, just like a universal antidote treats poisoning, for example. But after this event, I realized that Bhavanam Kevalam, it's for everybody. It's for the world. And we can sing it, and we can play it, and we can share it with the world. It's universal. Unforgettable. Thank you.